I've always been really fascinated by grading on a curve. This is where you tailor your expectations for each student in the class based on the overall skill of the class. Most teachers do this even if they don't know that they're doing it. And it creates this very odd reality where one student can be a C student in one class and an A student in a different class without any change to their work product. Lately, I feel like we're grading on a curve when it comes to how we talk about video game writing. Hi, my name is Tim, I write for television, and I actually have a master's in education of all things, so let's see if we can put that to use. I recently read some glowing reviews for this new game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And I thought, well, that's a terrible name for a game, but you know, the reviews look good. The reviews were specific. They praised the game for its excellent writing. And I like excellent writing, so I'm on board. I decided to buy the game, and I started playing it. I started out playing as this floppy-haired sad man, and I learned about this strange sci-fi world, and I met a cast of characters, all aggressively French, and then some sort of strange alien god raptured my ex-girlfriend, so now I gotta go on an expedition. Me and the boys get on a boat, and I just happened to check my clock, and it says that an hour has passed, and I just kept thinking about pacing. I mean, can you imagine if you went to the theaters to see a movie called Expedition 33 and you had to wait a whole hour before the expedition started? That would be crazy. That would be inefficient. When you are writing for television or film, something you should always be thinking about is efficiency. How can you get across the characters, the tone, the setting, all these things in as few words as possible, in as few scenes as possible? Because you want to keep the audience on the hook. You want to keep the plot moving. Does this mean you can't ever slow down and include long, meandering scenes? No, but you have to earn them. I'll give you an example. The movie Pulp Fiction has a dozen characters, intersecting plots, and almost everyone in the story is a bad person. But look at how Tarantino introduces them in a way that gets you very quickly on their side. Here's Vince and Jules. First, we have this scene where Vince talks about his vacation in Europe.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
What do they call a Big Mac?
Big Mac's a Big Mac, but they call it Le Big Mac.
Le Big Mac.
It's a silly scene, but it very efficiently establishes his character. He's a guy who goes to Europe, but still wants McDonald's. He's a simple guy. He's not gonna overthink it. It makes him feel delightfully real and unpretentious. After this, Jules and Vince take out some guns, and now we know they're about to do something dangerous, but we don't know what. Then we get another scene with the same two guys. Now they are talking about how a mob boss almost killed a guy just for giving his wife a foot massage. In this scene, we are setting up the plot, establishing the mob boss, his wife, as well as further developing these characters. They are having this casual conversation about a foot massage while calmly walking to a possible gunfight, which says a lot about them. What makes these scenes hum is that each line of dialogue is working double duty, or in some cases triple duty. A discussion about the ethics of giving a foot massage to a married woman serves both to establish the nonchalant vibe of these two characters, while also subtly informing the audience that there might be implicit danger in spending time with Mia Wallace. Nothing about these scenes feel rushed. They feel casual and almost meandering, and yet they convey a ton of information about the world, the tone, the characters, and the plot. And Tarantino does this all in 5 minutes. That is efficient writing. Anyway, back to Expedition 33. Before starting their titular expedition, I meet like a dozen people, and none of them are remotely memorable. They are all very pretty, which is nice, but doesn't help me distinguish them. They mostly just deliver exposition. One of them even has the audacity to quiz me about the game's lore. Anyway, it's all deeply inefficient, a whole hour to cover information that could have been conveyed in a scene or two. Once the exposition is underway, half the new people are blown up upon arrival, which is, sad, I guess?
Oh no, he died!
Later, a barefoot woman joins my sad boy, and I pick up from context clues that she might have been one of those people I met before the expedition started, but I can't really remember a single trait about her. Except, apparently, she doesn't like footwear. Oh, she floats, I see. So floppy-haired sad man and the shoeless wonder trek around this weird land and fight monsters, and I start to get this feeling that I don't really care about these people. All I know is that sad man is sad and barefoot lady is magic. The world was interesting, but despite the hour-long preamble, I have not been given anything to make these characters engaging or likable. Now this game is really long, and later on in the plot there's lots of good character work and story, but I just kept thinking, imagine going to see a movie where you don't start to like the characters until hour 3, and it takes an hour for the plot to start going. That would be a bad movie. You wouldn't like it. Even a TV show has to sell you on the characters in the first hour, or you are not coming back for episode 2. But not Expedition 33, because it's a game, and games don't get judged by the same standards as TV or movies. They can make you wait several hours before providing any interesting character beats. But why? Why is it that games can be lauded for their masterwork writing when the same exact writing would be seen as sloppy and bad if it were in a movie? So yeah, obviously it's because there's gameplay. The game doesn't need to write engaging characters because you are actually controlling the character, which means you are by default engaged. The plot doesn't need to hold your attention because the challenge of the game will hold your attention instead. But none of this means you can't write efficient dialogue. The fact that I'm controlling the hero doesn't mean the hero has to be boring. And yet, it seems like we give games a pass for the kind of writing that would be unacceptable in film. So this bothers me, because it feels like we're grading films and video games on a different scale. It's sort of like when your toddler hands you a picture of a horse and you go, that's very good, even though it has 6 legs. I feel like if we're supposed to treat video games as an art form just as valuable as film and television, then we should hold it to the same standards. Does this mean that every video game has to have the same script writing quality as Pulp Fiction or its crap? No. I mean, no, that would be unrealistic, but like a little bit of brevity couldn't hurt. I mean, let's look at another game, okay? This is Tactical Breach Wizards, a game where you play as a magic SWAT team member in a modern fantasy. The game uses dialogue to establish the 2 lead characters, the tone, the setting, and the plot, all while also having you play through a tutorial mission, and it does it all in 10 minutes. That's efficient writing. The game introduces a cast of memorable characters and some remarkably deep world lore, and it does it all with a healthy respect for my time. See, it can be done. I think part of the problem is that the selling point for a lot of video games is the runtime. If you're going to charge $70, you need to provide days worth of content, which means a story that could be told in 20 minutes now takes 60 hours. No one's in a rush. No one needs to be efficient. And I think this runtime selling point hurts games, especially games that are supposed to be artful, especially role-playing games. As I mentioned earlier, I love role-playing games. I've been playing them since the first Baldur's Gate on PC. But role-playing games have a funny challenge that is almost impossible to overcome when it comes to writing. How do you write a story about a character that you, the writer, cannot control? Good writing dictates that a scene of dialogue should serve some purpose in the story, either developing the character or advancing the plot, but what if the player just wants to talk to Rex over and over again, repeating the same dialogue 7 times?
Rex? Shepard? Rex? Shepard?
That wouldn't be good writing if you saw it in a movie. Good heroes experience failure and disappointment, forcing them to change and grow. But what if the player reloads the fight every time it looks like they might lose? Well-written characters are consistent with clear motivation. But what if the player is a noble hero except for one scene where they decide to kill an innocent farmer because they want the farmer's pants? Some RPGs have found a creative workaround. The Witcher 3 lets you roleplay as Geralt, a man whose characterization is so strong that half the fun comes from trying to embody him. The Dark Souls games have so little dialogue and none from the hero, which allows the player to find meaning on their own. Everything is consistent because everything is up to your interpretation. There's a lot of ambiguity and specificity, and you know what that means because you saw my earlier video about setting. Video games have an incredible breadth of storytelling potential. Interactive narratives allow for discovery and engagement that is impossible in other mediums. Games like BioShock and The Last of Us build the story in a way that confronts the players and forces them to examine their own agency in the story. And game writing is hard. I have tremendous respect for people who write branching storylines that have to go for 60 hours. It's tough work. But it seems to me like when video games have to put aside their interactive storytelling and present a scene where two characters just talk to each other, those scenes are, for the most part, pretty lousy. And I'm talking about masterpieces. I mean, a lot of folks will tell you that Metal Gear Solid 2 is the best game ever made, but Jesus, have you heard these people talk?
I can't believe you're on this mission. I keep thinking I'll wake up.
Raiden, this is real. And that's why you won't wake up.
But nothing seems real.
I've made up my mind to stay with you. Whether this is real or a bad dream, I'll keep watching you till it's over.
Thank you, Rose. And I won't let you be just a dream.
Final Fantasy VII is a legend of video game storytelling because it contains the never-before-seen twist of killing the love interest at the end of the second act. A trope so worn out that it's in the Iliad blew the mind of so many 12-year-olds that the game has been canonized and revered as a masterpiece. Video games are a pretty young medium, so it makes sense that they're still working things out. But video games are also an increasingly popular medium, with an increasingly broad audience, so I think it's time we start holding their writing to a higher standard. I'm not saying you shouldn't play Expedition 33. It's good. I'm just saying we need to shift how we talk about video game writing. They're in the big leagues, and I think a little healthy criticism will do them good. On a similar note, I think we should hold a special place for games that have actually good writing, not just graded on a curve. My gold standard is the Banner Saga, a game filled with rich characters and a nail-biting plot that never lets up. But I would also suggest, if you are interested in good writing, you try out The Return of Obra Dinn. You could also try I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, Disco Elysium, and as mentioned before, Tactical Breach Wizards. So, get in the comments, let me know what's a game that you think is really well written, what's a game that you think is maybe super overrated, and if you like what I'm doing in this channel, please tell a friend. I know we're all slaves to the algorithm, but I like to think a little word of mouth actually helps. So, pick a video that you really like, share it with a friend, tell them to watch it on their lunch break, it'll do me a world of good. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.